really swollen. I got banged in the occipital bone on my right eye. Yeah, that's pretty rough. Yeah, good job. So yeah, I played soccer in high school, and some of us are even more familiar than I am with horrible soccer injuries. This was like small potatoes. It was not that big a deal. I went up for a header, and somebody got me right here. Their elbow or their head, I have no idea, just hit the mess out of my right eyebrow. And immediately I went down to the ground, I screamed, and my eye was swollen, like you just saw in that picture. My friend Sam on my team said, "I thought your eyeball had popped out." And so I was ready to throw up. Like it just looked so horrible. And it's funny now, like obviously I wasn't that upset about it. I was literally like going like that. So that was like 5 minutes after it happened. It didn't even hurt that bad. The crazy thing that happened was the trainer sent me to the ER. My mom drove me there. We got some Zaxby's on the way. And I was in the parking lot eating because I was hungry from the game. And I sneezed. And when I sneezed in the car, my eyes swelled up even bigger because the bone that got fractured my sinus is right behind it. And so pressure from my sinus when I sneezed literally filled up my eyelid. And I felt it go. And I went, "Mom, we have to go inside right now. I'm dying." It was super freaky. I have another picture where it's even bigger, and like a little bit of my forehead was swollen too because it was just so swollen. So, like my point, and maybe you've connected the dots already. Our story tonight is in John 9, a blind man. So maybe just a humorous way to talk about the effects of eyesight that we. But it was a strange experience. The swelling went down after like a couple days, but I had this black eye, and really it was still swollen, mostly shut. So most of the time, for about 2 weeks, I was walking around with one functional eye because this was just swollen. I had a video project in chemistry class, and in the first half of the video, it was before the soccer game, and in the second half, it was after. So all of a sudden, like, I'm talking to the camera, and it's fine. My friend is on, and then I'm on again, and my teacher's like, "Whoa!" Because my eye's swollen shut. In my high school soccer team photo, I'm dead center intentionally because there's a purple dot in the photo, and it's my eyeball. And my coach thought that was really funny. So, yeah, it was crazy, and it hurt, and it's just super weird to function with not great eyesight. I don't know, like, how many of us in the room wear glasses or contacts? Anybody? How many of us in the room don't need loud and proud, Libby Lowry, glasses girl. How many of us don't wear glasses or contacts? And are probably should be.
Especially on the road.
Especially on the
That was good.
I didn't even
No comment. So yeah, whoever was blindfolded in our game just a moment ago, can somebody who is blindfolded just share, like, when I yelled the word go and everybody's yelling at you like where to go, what are some feelings that you were having?
It was impossible.
Frustration.
Stress, frustration, confusion,
I just heard noise.
frustration. Someone already said that one. Confusion. Somebody already said that one too. So yeah, and why? Why? Yeah, like plain and simple, because you couldn't see anything. Our eyesight orients us to what's in front of us. Our eyesight, the fact that we can see, it leads us to like what we can do with our other senses. If you smell something, it helps you know what it is that you're smelling. If you hear something, you know what it is you're hearing because you can see it. The gift of eyesight is pretty amazing. If I had to choose, like, I don't, have you ever heard like the question, if you had to choose one of your senses to lose, which one would it be? I wouldn't want to lose any of them, but I certainly would not choose eyesight. That, I think, is arguably the worst one to lose. In our story tonight, we read about a man born blind. We read about a man born blind. So not somebody who lost their eyesight. They never had it to begin with. So they've literally never seen anything in their life. Later in the story, we actually read that certain people go and talk to this guy's parents. And the way that they talk about their son, who, spoiler alert, gets healed by Jesus, it makes it sound like he's a man, like an adult male. So however old he was like probably a fully developed, fully functioning, aside from eyesight, adult man. And he had never seen a thing. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, we play blindfold dodgeball, and within 30 seconds, you're feeling like stressed and anxious and like just ill-equipped to do what it is you need to do. Imagine living a like lifetime and not seeing anything ever. That's crazy. That's crazy. And that is where we are at tonight. So I'm gonna, like I did last week, I'm gonna walk us through the verses that we'll be reading. This series that we're in is, I've dubbed it personal, because Jesus, we're reading in the Gospel of John about one-on-one interactions Jesus has with people, and kind of what that can teach us about Jesus and our relationship with him. So first we looked at Nicodemus, and how Jesus shined on Nicodemus in his darkness. Nicodemus was in darkness. He came to Jesus at night. Nicodemus was darkened in his understanding. He didn't understand the things that he needed to as a teacher of the law. And Nicodemus was in the darkness spiritually. He needed new spiritual life. So now we're looking at Jesus and the blind man. Jesus and the blind man, and how Jesus can give us sight, maybe in more than one way. So let me read. Look at verse 1 with me. Could somebody actually read verse 1 through 10 for me? Verse 1 through 10. Evie, nice and loud for us, please.
And as he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, It was not that this man sinned, nor his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. You must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming, and no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Having said these things, he spit on the ground and made mud with his saliva. Then he anointed the man's eyes with mud, and said to him, Go wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar were saying, Is this not the man who used to sit and beg? Some said, It is he. Others said, No, but he is like him. He kept saying, I am the man. So they said to him, How were your eyes open?
Could you go to verse 13, actually? Sorry.
He answered, The man called Jesus made mud and anointed my eyes, and said to me, Go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed and received my sight. They said to him, Where is he? He said, I do not know.
And then could I get somebody to read verses 26 through 40?
They said to him, What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? And he answered to them, I have told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples? And they reviled him, saying, You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he came from. The man answered him, Why this is an amazing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but if anyone is a worshiper of God and does his will, God listens to him. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. They answered him, "You were born in utter sin, and would you teach us?" And they cast him out. Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and having found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" And he answered them, "And who is he, sir, that I may believe in him?" Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and it is he who is speaking to you." He said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshipped him. And Jesus said, "For judgment I came into this world, that those who do not see may see, and those who see may become blind." Some of the Pharisees near him heard these things and said to him, "Are we also blind?"
Sorry, keep.
Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would have no guilt. And now that you say, 'We see,' your guilt remains."
So we have here a story about sight, a story about blindness, but there's different layers and different depths to what this sight means and what it means to be blind. It's not just physical, it's spiritual. And this is a theme in the Gospel of John that we've seen so far. With Nicodemus, it was being born again. With the woman at the well, what was that? The water of eternal life. They were at a well. Jesus said, "Hey, I'm thirsty. Give me some water. But I've got water, and if you drink it, you'll live forever." Now we have sight and blindness. What does it really mean to see? What does it really mean to be blind? That's kind of what we're answering. And I would say that with what Jesus teaches at the end of the passage, "For judgment I came into this world, those who do not see may see, and that those who see may become blind," I would say this, that we all, as human beings, not just as Christians, as human beings, we need to come to a place where we admit that we are blind. And why? Because when we admit that, Jesus gives us blessings of sight. And he does that in two ways I see here tonight. So I want to go back to the beginning of the story. As he passes by, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him in verse 2, "Rabbi," that means teacher, "who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" I would not encourage any of you, if you meet a blind person, to wonder who sinned. If it was that person or if it was their parents, so that you can try to figure out why it is that they're blind. I mean, have any of you ever met somebody and wondered, man, who sinned? There we go. Yeah, I'm sure we've met people with many different things going on, but we don't often think, man, I wonder who sinned so that happened to them. That sucks. Oh, geez, that sounds horrible to us. To them, this was actually a common, theological question. Maybe if you're like me, you've had, the debate before about free will and Arminianism and Calvinism and free will versus determinism and, all that sort of stuff. That's one of the many topics that we like to talk about. Something that they liked to talk about back then theologically was this idea that somebody could sin and it could affect a person later on, literally physically affect them with a disability or with a curse in their family. So that is why the disciples asked this question, and they ask it to Jesus. And Jesus says something really interesting. He answers, "It was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it's day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I'm in the world, I am the light of the world." Do you guys see, by the way, Jesus, the light of the world, has just walked past a man who can't what?
See.
I just love the Gospel of John and how these themes play together. The light of the world meets a man who cannot see. And by the end of the story, we figure out who actually can see who Jesus is. And so this leads me to the first blessing that Jesus is able to give us when we admit that we can't see on our own, that we need Jesus to help us see, to give us sight. That would be that we understand how God works with suffering in the world. We understand a theological topic more deeply, how God and suffering go together. We understand the character of God. Jesus really quickly responds to his disciples. This person didn't sin, or his parents didn't sin, and God thought, okay, so now I'm just going to curse them with blindness. Jesus said, no, this person is blind so that God can be at work in them. And at work in them through who? Through Jesus, the light of the world. Hey guys, can we pay attention? Thank you. The light of the world had come, and he wanted to work in this blind man. So we learned that God, when it comes to our suffering and our struggles in our life, is not far off and away and not distant, but he actually wants to come close. That God is not somebody who's just vengeful and upset and wants to mess us up if we don't, or if we sin, but that he's actually gracious and loving, and he wants to come close and provide healing in ways that we didn't think were possible. Later on in the story, the Pharisees are asking the very same question to this man, and the man again responds with, hey, listen, all I can tell you is that Jesus healed me. And the Pharisees literally, they won't receive that. It doesn't compute in their brains that Jesus would be sent by God and that God would want to heal this man of blindness. They are so stuck in their understanding of what they think that they see that they wind up actually being blind. And so again, when we admit that we are blind, when we admit that we cannot see, when we admit that apart from Jesus we don't fully get it, Jesus is able to give us the blessing of true sight. We understand the heart of God more, that God is not out to get us, and that God actually loves us, wants to come and save us. And the ultimate way that we see that is how Jesus goes to the cross for us. He enters into the ultimate darkness, death, and then he resurrects. He literally, he marches into the doorways of death, the light of the world does, into darkness itself, and shines so bright that the darkness can't overcome it. When we admit that apart from Jesus, we can't see on our own, Jesus gives us the blessing of understanding more of what it means that God wants to love and care for us in our suffering. Next, when we admit that we cannot see on our own, that we need Jesus to see, we actually are able to see Jesus himself and have a relationship with God. Here's what I mean. Here's where we see this in the story. I'm looking at verse 30 again. The man answered, he's talking with the Pharisees. This is the man who was born blind, who now can see. He says to the Pharisees, this is an amazing thing. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but if anyone is a worshiper of God and does his will, God listens to him. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. So his point is that the Pharisees were questioning him, and they were asking him, where is it that this man comes from? We don't think that Jesus was sent from God. And as we've gone through John in our series, that's been like a recurring theme, right? That the Pharisees just resist this idea that Jesus is from God. And then just the idea, like, who is Jesus? Where is he coming from? Is he God in the flesh? Is he just a prophet? And so this man who was healed by Jesus says, guys, like Pharisees, how can you not see that he is from God? Who else could give me sight? I've never been able to see. I was born blind. Who else has the authority? Who else has the ability to give Jesus the power to give me sight? And yet you are the ones who are blind. You are the ones who can't understand this. What are you not getting? Like that he's upset with them. He doesn't understand what they're not getting and why they are resisting Jesus. And they respond in verse 34, you were born in utter sin, and would you teach us? And they cast him out. They cast him out. Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and having found him, he said, pause, having found him, rewind to our first point, Jesus didn't cast this man out. Jesus went and found this man. God came close to the man born blind, the man that he healed. Jesus asked him, do you believe in the Son of Man? Now, the Son of Man, why would Jesus say the Son of Man? If you look at the prophet Daniel in our Old Testament, the prophet Daniel, in Daniel chapter 7, Daniel, hundreds and hundreds of years before Jesus was on earth, hundreds of years, Daniel is writing down a vision of heaven that he had. This is a big deal. Only prophets were able to see this sort of thing. Daniel has this vision of heaven, and he calls God the Father, who he sees sitting on his throne, the Ancient of Days. The Ancient of Days, just like this really interesting name. Like God the Father, the Ancient One, the one who has always been. He's always been around. He's never been created. He's sitting on his throne. And Daniel paints this picture of like a heavenly courtroom. And there's these angelic beings that are being presented before God. And God is casting judgment on these angelic beings. So God is he's as a king doing kingly things. With authority casting judgment on beings that we've never seen. And then Daniel says something really weird. There was one like a son of man. There was this guy who looked like a man who went in front of the Ancient of Days. Guys, men don't walk around in heaven like this. This was a place, God's throne room in the Old Testament is a place for God, for angels, for angelic beings, but you never see a man walking around in heaven in the Old Testament. This is really strange. And on top of that, a man in front of God, acting as king, acting as judge, do you think that man is going to be found innocent or guilty? Men are not very commonly found innocent in the eyes of God. We're sinners. Like the expectation is that God would cast judgment on this Son of Man, but the very next verse says that the Ancient of Days, God the Father sitting on the throne, gives the Son of Man, the one like a Son of Man, a spot on the throne. And he gives him a kingdom that will last forever. This one like a Son of Man is Jesus. Daniel, hundreds of years before Jesus was on earth, saw a vision into heaven of Jesus, the Son of God, one like a Son of Man, receiving a kingdom from God the Father. A kingdom that would last forever, Daniel says. And Jesus looks at this blind man and he says, do you believe in the Son of Man? Do you believe in the one that Daniel saw? The one who will rule forever, who God the Father has appointed and anointed to rule over God's kingdom. God himself. This man says, who is he that I may believe in him? He's ready and willing to believe in the Son of Man. And Jesus says, this is so cool, you have seen him. You have seen him. And it is he who is speaking to you. Jesus says, you have seen him. It is he who is speaking to you. He's like, dude, it's me. And you couldn't see? I've given you sight physically, but not only can you see physically, you have the sight in your heart, inwardly, to understand that I am God. And that God has come close to you, face to face. This is not just a physical sight. This is a spiritual sight. This is a salvation sort of knowledge. Jesus told Nicodemus, you need to be born again, dude. Like, you need to know God in a spiritual way. The Holy Spirit needs to move in your heart and awaken you. And Jesus is looking at this man who is blind and says, you have seen him. Jesus didn't just work on this guy's eyes, he worked on his heart. And he gave his heart the ability to know who Jesus was. When we admit that we are blind, when we admit that apart from Jesus we cannot see on our own, even God himself, that we cannot understand, when we admit that, Jesus gives us the blessing of knowing him, of seeing him, and knowing God. And that is eternal life. So the question would be, like, have you admitted that? Do you know that you, on your own, are blind? And even though you can see with your eyes, that on your own, apart from Jesus, you cannot see God. You cannot know and discern the things of God. That you're like Nicodemus we talked about a couple weeks ago. On your own, without Jesus, you cannot get to God. You can't see him. You can't know him. But when you admit you're blind, Jesus can give you the blessing of knowing him, of sight of God, of seeing him. There's this cool story, this woman who lived during World War II named Corrie ten Boom. She was a woman who grew up in Holland, and she grew up around the time Hitler and his Nazi troops were taking over the world. They were taking over Europe. And this woman, Corrie ten Boom, one day the Gestapo took over her hometown in Holland, and she started, because they were persecuting Jewish people, she started to bring Jewish people into her home to take care of them with her dad and her siblings. One day they got found out, they were arrested and immediately separated, and Corrie was put in isolation because she was sick. She was put in isolation for 3 months. She didn't see another person for 3 months, except the hand that would slip food into her cell where they were keeping her. After 3 months, a Nazi officer brings her, calls upon her, brings her to him, and they're talking face to face. And this Nazi officer is playing nice, trying to get more information about the Jews that they were hiding so that they can find them and kill them. Corrie sees through this. She sees how wicked this man is. And she starts to actually witness to him about her faith. She was a Christian. That was why she hid Jewish people. She wanted to protect humanity and love them. Well, she is talking to this guy about the Bible, about why she did what she did. And he asked her, why do you care about teaching the Bible? He knew that she had a ministry where she taught the Bible to mentally handicapped people. And he asked her, why would you waste your time with those people when they can't understand you? Why would you waste your time with them? And she actually told this guy to his face, a Nazi soldier, sitting down with him, the guy who had her life in his hands. Sometimes in God's eyes, someone like me or someone like you is more foolish than a mentally handicapped person. And so I love them. Imagine the courage on this woman. Imagine that. Well, she had talked about the Bible. The next day, he calls her back into his office and he says, Corrie, I could not sleep last night thinking about this Bible that you were telling me about. Can you tell me more about it? and more about like what it teaches us. And she said, well, the Bible to me teaches me about Jesus Christ, who's the light of the world. And it's by him that I see, by him that I love, by him that I care for other people. And this Nazi soldier started opening up to her and telling her about the trouble that he was having with leaving his family back at home during the war, and bombings were going on. He was constantly afraid for them and constantly worried that they may pass away. He missed the vacations that they would go on during the summer, and he's like spilling his guts to this woman that he's put in prison, very backwards. And she asked him, well, what other darkness do you have in your life? And he actually told her, what could you possibly understand about the suffering that I'm going through? Now, picture that, a Nazi soldier who's imprisoned and kept this woman in isolation for 3 months, and he says, what could you understand about the darkness that I'm facing? Who's blind in that scenario? The freaking stupid soldier who can't even see past himself. He's imprisoned a woman, for goodness sakes, who's sick, who's like malnourished. That man was blind. That man didn't deserve like anything, especially from a prisoner that he had. And yet, the amazing, beautiful thing is that Corrie ten Boom, in that moment, continued to tell him about Jesus. She did not let his blindness affect the fact that she knew that she, just like him, was a sinner in need of grace, in need of forgiveness, and in need of the love of Jesus. She continued to witness to him. She continued to love him. She continued to come close, even to him, this guy who was blind, who couldn't see. But she could, because she knew Jesus. Because she knew that on her own she was blind, but with Jesus, she knew that Jesus had come close to the suffering of the world, and she knew and saw who Jesus was herself. So that's the invitation that we have tonight. In our own darkness, in our own blindness, and whatever you may have written down when we first started, if you wrote down anything, in the darkness in your life, when you admit that apart from Jesus, you can't see on your own. Apart from him, you cannot see. You are dependent on him. Jesus can shine a light, and you can see him, and that's all that matters. So, in the last few minutes we have, we're going to do another song. And so I just invite you guys to listen to these words.
Yeah.
And
Close your eyes. Focus on Jesus.
Close your eyes, focus on Jesus. You can stay seated if you want, stand up, and just pray as we sing this song together.